jeopardy and self-incrimination. The term jeopardy is defined as hazard, danger, or peril. With respect to criminal law, jeopardy means the risk of conviction and punishment. The expression is defined in Black's Law Dictionary as a second prosecution after the first trial for the same offense. The principle derives its origin from the English common law principle of nemo debet vexare, meaning a man may not be put twice in peril for the same offense. In Mohinder Pratap Singh versus Director Health Services, the court held that no person shall be prosecuted or punished for the same offense more than once. This was a significant case where the right against double jeopardy was upheld as a basic human right. Now double jeopardy under CRPC. So section 300 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973 abounds with two essential legal principles called atrocious convict and atrocious acquit. It means that the provision puts a bar on trial of a charge against a person who has already been charged for the same offense and either has been convicted or acquitted. The provision has been divided into six clauses, and each of them is discussed in a detailed herein under. Clause 1. So, this clause implies that a person should not be tried for the same offense twice if he has already been tried for that offense. The essentials to apply in this section are: the person must be either convicted or acquitted of the offense, the offense must be tried by a court of competent jurisdiction, the two offenses should be the same or at least identical. If more than one offense can be made out from given facts of the case, conviction of one offense shall act as a bar or the trial for the other offenses resulting from the same facts. In ICAI versus Vimal Surana, the accused was convicted for offences under Section 24 and 26 of the Chartered Accountant Act and was subsequently tried for the similar offences under IPC Section 1419 and 420. The conviction was held to be bar on the second trial. In clause 2, it provides that where a person is convicted or acquitted of an offense and a distinct charge could be made out against such person but was actually not made in the previous trial, he cannot be prosecuted for the same. The intention of this clause is to prevent abuse of criminal administration to continue prosecuting a person by building up charges against him. For instance, imagine five friends plan to rob a rich merchant and execute their plan. While committing robbery, the merchant sees them and they hit him, making him unconscious. They abduct him, their vehicle, and throw into a waterfall and kill him. Here, the five friends can be charged with formation of unlawful assembly, dacoity, murder, abduction in order to murder, and dacoity with murder. Thus, if the prosecution was to misuse criminal administration, the five friends will be tried for each offense separately, and each trial will take around 4 to 5 years. In clause 3, it lays down a situation where the accused can be retired for an offense which arises from the same facts of the case but is distinct in nature. According to this clause, a person convicted of any offense constituted by any act causing consequences which, together with such act, constituted a different offense from that of which he was convicted may be afterwards tried for such last mentioned offense if the consequences had not happened or were not known to the court to have happened at the time when he was convicted. For example, A ravished B in a moving bus and threw her out of the bus. Later, A is caught. tried and convicted for rape under IPC. However, if B dies in the hospital during treatment, A can be retired for murder since this is a new consequence arising from the same act which has was not brought to light on the prior occasion. This clause is applicable only on convictions and no acquittals. In clause 4, it is a continuation of the previous clause and it lays down another exception where double jeopardy rules does not apply. According to this provision, if a person is convicted or acquitted or any offense notwithstanding such conviction or acquittal, if the offense has given rise to subsequent consequences, and if the court convicting or acquitting the accused was incompetent to try him for the subsequent offense, there is no bar on the second trial. Thus, the only requirement for this section is that the court trying the accused must be incompetent and without jurisdiction to try the subsequent case. In clause 5, it extends the right against double jeopardy in certain cases where the accused is discharged through not acquitted. Section 258 of the code provides that a court shall be empowered to discharge the accused in a summons case and let him free even before the principal witnesses are examined. This is called discharge and happens when the court hears the prosecution and believes that no ground exists to try the accused for the offense because the prosecution evidence is not sufficient to prove anything and it will be a waste of time to continue the trial. Power to discharge can be exercised when the case instituted is a summons case, warrant case, or even a sessions case. However, Section 305 applies only when the accused is discharged in a summons case. The clause provides that any person accused of an offense in a summons case and discharged after trial cannot be prosecuted for the same offense again except without the consent of the concerned court. The provision was inscribed in the code to ensure safeguard against unnecessary misuse of power to prosecute. Clause 6. This is saving clause which ensures that certain provisions of the same act or any other act will not be affected by this section. This section saves section 26 of the General Clauses Act 1897 and section 188 of CRPC. Then section 26 of the General Clauses Act 1897 is, this section provides that where any act constitutes offences under different laws and are punishable with different laws, the person who is accused of such act shall be tried and convicted under either of the laws but shall not be liable for prosecution twice. Thus, the case of ICAI versus Vimal Surana is ideal for this clause. Then section 188 CRPC. According to this section, if an offense has been committed by a person outside India, either in some other country or in a vessel or aircraft registered in India, and India has exclusive jurisdiction to try that person, any prosecution or conviction or acquittal by a foreign court shall not bar the prosecution in Indian courts and it shall not amount to double jeopardy. In Monica Bedi versus State of Andhra Pradesh, the accused had obtained a passport with a false name and was already tried for the offense in Lisbon. However, the court held that she can be tried in India as well and the right against double jeopardy shall not be applicable. Next is self incrimination. So, according to Black's Law Dictionary, a declaration or an act that occurs during an investigation where a person or witness incriminates themselves either explicitly or implicitly is known as self incrimination. In similar words, we can say that it is the act of implicating or exposing one own self to a criminal prosecution. The right against self incrimination in India. So, the Indian constitution provides immunity to an accused against self incrimination under Article 23, which states no person accused of an offense shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. It is based on the legal maxim of nemo tentiole podere accusare simpsum, which means no man is obliged to be a witness against himself. The Supreme Court widened the scope of this immunity by interpreting the word witness to include oral as well as documentary evidence, so that no person can be compelled to be a witness to support a prosecution against himself. This prohibition cannot be applied in cases where an object or document is searched or seized from the possession of the accused. For the same reason, the clause does not bar the medical examination of the accused or the obtaining a thumb impression or specimen signature from him. This immunity is available only against criminal proceeding. The Supreme Court has made it clear that in order to claim this immunity from being compelled to make a self-incriminating statement, it is necessary that a formal accusation must have been made against the person at the time of interrogation. He cannot claim the immunity at some general inquiry or investigation on the ground that his statement may at some later stage lead to an accusation. The compulsory administration of the narco-analysis technique amounts to testimonial compulsion and thereby triggers the prosecution of Article 23 of the Constitution. Now, the ingredients of Article 23. So, the person who is accused of an offense. First, so this privilege is only available to a person who is accused of an offense, that is, person against whom a formal accusation relating to commission of an offense has been leveled, which may result in prosecution. In India, a formal accusation can be made by launching of an FIR or a formal complaint against a person accusing him of committing a crime. It is not necessary that the trial or inquiry should have commenced before a court. Article 23 operates only on making of such formal accusation. It is imperative to note that a person cannot claim the prosecution if at the time he made the statement he was not an accused but becomes an accused thereafter. Article 23 does not apply to department inquiries into allegations against a government servant since there is no accusation of an offence. In MP Sharma versus Satish Chandra, it was held that a person whose name is mentioned in the first information report as an accused can claim protection under 23. The privilege against self incrimination is available at both trial and pre-trial stage, that is, when the police investigation is going on and the person is regarded as an accused, or even if his name is not mentioned in the FIR as an accused. In Nandini Satpate versus PL Dani, the appellant, a former chief minister, was called to the Vigilance Police Station for the purpose of examination for a case filed against her under the Prevention of Corruption Act 1947. During the investigation, she was served with a long list of questions in writing, which she denied to answer and claimed protection under Article 23. The Supreme Court held that the objective of Article 23 is to protect the accused from unnecessary police harassment, and the right against self incrimination is available to witness and the accused in the same manner, and it is applicable at every stage where information is furnished. The privilege under Article 23 is applied at the stage of police investigation when the information is extracted. The right to silence is not limited to the case for which the person is being examined, but further extends to the other matters pending against him, which may have the potential of incriminating him in other matters. It was also held that the protection could be used by a suspect as well. In the case of Bola Sahib versus State of Maharashtra, it was held that a witness is a police case. who is also an accused in the complaint case for the same incident, cannot claim absolute immunity from testifying in the case. However, he may refuse to answer those questions which tend to incriminate him. Compulsion to be a witness. So, the application of the narcoanalysis test as a technique for investigation raises the issue of encroachment of human rights. In State of Bombay versus Khati Kalu Ukhad, the court held that it must be shown that the person was compelled to make a statement which was likely to incriminate him. Compulsion is duress. It should be a physical objective act and not a state of mind like beating, threatening, imprisonment of wife, parent, or child of a person. Article 23 does not apply if a person makes a confession without any inducement or threat. In case of state Delhi administration versus Jagjit Singh, the court held that if an accused has been granted pardon under section 306 of the Criminal Procedure Code, he ceases to be an accused and becomes a witness for the prosecution, and his evidence cannot be used against him in other cases. Section 132 of Indian Evidence Act protects a witness from being prosecuted on the basis of the information given by him in a criminal proceeding which tends to incriminate him. Compulsion resulting in giving evidence against himself. So, an accused can be compelled to submit to investigation by giving thumb impression or specimen for writing or exposing body for the purpose of identification. In Khati Kalu case, it was held that it must be necessarily shown that the witness was compelled to make a statement likely to incriminate him. Compulsion is an essential ingredient, but if a person makes a confession without any inducement, threat, or promise, Article 23 does not apply. The accused may waive his right against self incrimination by voluntarily making an oral statement or producing documentary evidence incriminatory in nature. In Amrit Singh versus State of Punjab, the accused had charges of rape and murder of an 8-year-old girl. When the body of the deceased was discovered, some strands of hair were found in the closed fist of the child. The police wanted to analyze the hair of the accused, but the accused refused to give the sample. The court found the accused to be protected against self incrimination, so he had the right to refuse to give hair sample. But if the right against self incrimination is considered in such a broad manner, then it might lead to misuse of this right by the accused. In an interesting case of X versus Y, the divorce proceeding on the ground of adultery were going on in the Delhi High Court. The court allowed the paternity test of the preserved fetus as it was no longer a part of the wife's body. She was not subjected to compulsion as the right against self incrimination does not extend to search and seizure of documents and any other object under a search warrant.